Len Graham, it's a pleasure
Thank you.
to formally meet you, having been shoulder to shoulder with you in various pubs and clubs
Exactly.
throughout a long period of
A
time.
long period of time.
Um, you were presumably born and had formative years in the era of Elvis and Lonnie Donegan and guys like this. Where did it all go wrong?
Well, you have to blame two women in my story because my father was working in Glasgow, like many an Ulster man from all the nine counties. Glasgow was a big attraction, and he wanted my mother to come over and join me. We were going to get a wee house and everything, but she wouldn't leave her ma. So I had my mother and grandmother for the first 10 years of my life, and
Blessed art thou amongst women.
exactly, and they were singers, so I picked up from the word go. I was singing, and wee songs and big songs, or songs, local songs. In being on a fine September morn, the weather ain't been warm, it fell my lot to stroll along the bay of Swinkling Arm. The yellow corn was waving ripe, and the fields in bright array, and the blue seas washed the pebbles white along Glenarm Bay. That goes back to day, maybe not day one, but shortly after that I was singing along with them, you know.
Yeah, well, of course, the Glens where you come from are rich in the traditional music. Which Glen did you come out of?
Glenarm.
Glenarm. The best one, of course, is it?
Well, that's the first one, or either the last, depending what. If you're coming from the south, it's the first. If you're coming from the north, it's the last. The nine of the nine.
Was there a tradition of Caeling?
Oh
Caeling,
yeah,
like,
very
so
much
apart
so.
from,
Yeah.
Apart from
And
the ladies,
music.
there were other influences came
Oh
in.
yeah, there was a lot of music around the fiddling and Hammer Dulcimer. Funny
Hammer
enough.
Dulcimer, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
John Ray was recording in RTE and the BBC way back. He was born he was about the same age as my mother.
Right.
1915 he was born, and the family of them, they were just around the corner. They were all musicians,
Right.
fiddlers. And
I don't know why this question occurs to me, but did you find a difference in the songs that people were singing in terms of balladry and traditional?
well, you see, I never heard the word traditional or folk until I was well into my teens. They just called them old songs, they're just old songs. And, you were listening to the wireless and you might hear, put another nickel, and you're joining along with them,
Mm-hmm.
in the Nickelodeon. You didn't,
Yeah.
it was on the radio, but I mean, there were songs that I now know were traditional, and some of them were ballads, and there's shipwrecks up the road and all sorts of different topics that were covered by song,
Yeah. And of course, they kept the news and the old stories alive in so many ways that. Do you have any issues with the truth in music like that? Do you feel that these days we're so concerned about news articles being correct, but there are so many old songs that tended to eulogize people and.
Oh well, I mean, you get that. You have to take a lot of it with a pinch of salt, but I mean, there you do get insights that you don't always get out of the history books.
That's what I mean. The historically,
like the history is one thing. It's very hard to find in partial versions of it. Like they're so, there's so many different versions of the history, and the songs are also similar. You have to you get songs that take it from different angles, maybe an event.
It goes without saying that all traditional singers are standing on the shoulders of giants because they use material that came before. Who was your tallest giant, do you think?
Well, there's so many. I over the years, from in my own family and neighbours, they were all when I realised that they were all giants. Every one of them, right from the word go, and then it just seemed to, because of my interests, I seemed to find myself in that company the whole way through my life. That has been the case. That it'd be very hard to itemise one singer. There've been hundreds of them, really. Over the years.
Well, to put it a slightly different way, is there one genre of the song that you think you've gone for? Is that do you like to mix the funny songs and the serious songs?
I like, and that was the way of it too. It was very much like Eddie Butcher might start singing a big 20 verse ballad, but then the next time we'd be asked for a song, you'd throw in a wee funny one, you know, just to break the spell a wee bit, you know.
There was a line that Cathal O'Boyle had, who we may talk about later. He said Eddie Butcher, he had a great abattoir of songs.
Oh yeah, that was
that was the standard line, was it?
Yeah, that was from I don't know who, it might have been Frank Hart was guilty of that down in Dublin. We were down in Slattery's pub in Capel Street, myself and Joe Holmes and Eddie Butcher, and I overheard one of the dubs up at the bar saying, "Oh, those boys from the north, Jesus, Joe Holmes, Len Graham, and Eddie Butcher, Jesus, that's a great name, Eddie Butcher. Jesus, I hear he's got a huge abattoir of songs."
Good. About the epic song, do you think the days of the epic song are gone, given people's attention span?
Well, that's
at the
it.
moment?
My father put it, he reckoned once the electric light came in, the fairies went out the window, and he said the big, long, short in the winter ballads went out along with them too.
But you still keep some in your repertoire?
I would have
a
few edited a wee bit, but I've been guilty in the past of maybe singing a few of the big ones, but not so much in recent times, because you have to be conscious. My father had put it another way. He says, you know, your Aunt Emma there keeps a lot of hens up there. She doesn't go around here, you know, she's feeding them, chuck, 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 and throws a handful here, and chuck, 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 throws a handful there. She says, doesn't throw the bloody bucket over their heads, you know.
Yeah.
In other words, you know, like, you're living at different times, and, you know,
you have to adjust.
Yeah. Oh, I seen people walking out of concerts, I'll not name any names, but there was one singer who sang big long, I know it started, must have been at least half an hour, maybe more than half an hour long, and people were walking out of the bloody hall.
Yeah. I often think also about the speed of singing. I mean, everybody has to pick their own, but I think people shouldn't be able to sort of see the sentence coming ahead of you. That you should be singing at least as fast as people can think, and any slower than that, it drags the whole thing down. If we look at that from an oblique angle, do you think it's still possible to write great events, current events, in the style that you learned to sing in the ballad style?
There are people at it still. The Goleen Club in Dublin, there's quite a few people are still writing songs that cover current events, you know, but not as many as there would have been in the old days, of course, you know, and different times, you know.
Right, yeah. It's not an offensive word, I hope to say, but you're a blow-in to the Oriel area.
Oh, yeah. We came down and he owns 44, he was born in 82. Came down, he was about a year old, so about 83 we came down, and ourselves and the O'Hanlons, that'd be Jerry and Rita Hanlon, and their family, bought the old parochial house. We were in the curate's quarters, and Jerry and Rita were in the PP.
Was there a bit of jealousy over that reflected in the mortgage?
No, it was split down the middle, but they had the benefit of there's a small chapel and they turned it into a cloakroom, you know. But there's Jerry used to put a bottle of potching into it, you know, and
it had to be de-blessed.
No, he took it out and says, "My God, it's turned into potching." And he said it was water he put in. He said it came out as potching.
Yeah, well, I think
the tabernacle, you know.
Yes, we could all go to that pretty well. But coming from the relatively unscathed glens of Antrim to not an infamous, but a place that had its own difficulties, a place like South Armagh, it must have been quite a jump for you.
No, we were very lucky, and like I found it very similar to what the people were very similar. I was very lucky that I fell in with people like Jerry O'Hanlon and Rita and John Campbell and Michael Ned and the Flynns, and we were like a wee close circle of people and then with the starting up of, well, of course there was already a branch of Coltis and Fork Hill, and then about the early 70s they get started. And there was the singing weekend that started up in the early 80s, just more or less coincided with us arriving. Mm-hmm. And then there was the Stray Leaf Folk Club, which ran for
in O'Hanlon's.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a good.
There were wonderful times, and I was lucky enough myself and Kate to be on the periphery of and to dip into it all.
No, that was when that was going strong all those years. There's no problem. And there were things going on, and it's, you know, but lucky enough we weren't confronted with too much of that, you know.
No, remarkably so.
Remarkably so.
Remarkably
yeah,
so.
yeah.
And what are your best memories of that? The singing at its height. Who were the type of names that was attracting the traditional singers to the?
Oh, there was, like, it was like a who's who. Like, over the years, that came. Like, they were from all over Ireland. They coming from Scotland and England and everywhere. You know, there's a few Yanks.
I saw the occasional
You know,
Yankee.
oh
Yes.
yeah. So there was no. It's very much an international flavour to it. You know, but yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to think big, like
Oh,
the
yeah,
Jackie Hurst
yeah,
International
yeah,
Show Band.
Exactly. It certainly was. Become that, the same as the one that I go, which took over from South Armagh, would be the Inishowen. They're going strong now, and they have become very much an international. They're bringing people from all over the place.
And amazingly, there seems to be no shortage of new talent. I mean, we often at the time think, what's going to come after us, but they're there. Who would be the people you... I know you hate naming names. Do you particularly rate any young traditional singers now?
They're fairly strong on all levels, including the Irish language as well. Like, it's really, and the music has never been stronger. Like, it's very in a very healthy state. Yeah.
If I can take you back to your school books and the wonderful Venn diagrams where you have circles overlapping each other. If you think of the circle of traditional music as a whole and the circle that you had coming from the Glens, and then we superimpose this new circle on it, Oriel. To what extent from the music of Oriel is there, have you found it to overlap, say, with what you knew as a young fella growing up, the songs you learned, and how it fits into traditional music generally?
Very much so. Like, an awful lot of the songs are like, you'll find the songs of people. Now, this is Sam Henry issued. This didn't come out. The book didn't come out in 1990. But I was lucky that my mother's brother, there's 5 girls and 1 boy, Willie, gave me a shoebox when I was in my teens of paper cup, because they were published every week from 1923 to 1939 in the Northern Constitution, and he had cut out, not all of them, but the ones he was interested in, so he presented those to me along with family songs and songs that he had collected. But if you look through that book, you'll find songs that's from this area and songs from all over. Like, there's songs that have travelled all over Ireland that turn up here and all around. This covers mostly Antrim and Derry area, mostly, but a wee bit of Donegal, but mostly the Antrim and Derry. That book covers that area from 23 to 39, you know.
But there was a touch of fly forth my beauties, and they go off somewhere else, and they change and they evolve, and they
exactly.
And
you
they
get
come
different
back.
versions, all these different versions, and maybe the melody and the words change, of course, as well. With that oral tradition, you see, they're passed on.
Yeah. I always heard it said that Paul Brady went to great lengths. He went out to the States specifically to find a particular version of Arthur McBride, and indeed the Lakes of Pontchartrain. So Lakes of Pontchartrain, of course, was local to there, but Arthur McBride was our own.
Yeah.
But that the fact that these things travel so far, and
Lakes of Pontchartrain turns up on that.
No,
Yeah.
really.
Oh yeah. Stump McCluskey. He used to be a friend of Joe Holmes, fiddler and singer. Give songs to. Actually, I think Sean O'Boyle recorded them. Oh yeah, Sean O'Boyle recorded Stump.
So you're here in South Armagh,
Yeah.
and you've obviously, you don't sit in the house. You go out and you sing and you hear things. And how did you go native, so to speak?
Well, back in 1963, a man up in one of my early mentors, a man called Frank McCullum, fiddler and singer from Ballykessel, County Antrim, told me and my good friend Davy Dillon from Ballykessel about these wonderful gatherings called Flachiols. So we got a pair of ex-army boots and we hitchhiked lips down to Mullingar in 1963. That was the start of the Flahs. And then eventually by 19 1968, I decided to try my hand. Actually, I was talking to somebody there over in Scotland, of all places, and she met me, and elderly, actually older than me, and she said she heard me in Clonus, not in Clonus, but in Coot Hill, where she was from, and she said, I heard you at the singing competition in Coot Hill, 1968. I says, aye. I said, and I went on, I said, to sing at the All Ireland in Clonus in 1968. And the two adjudicators was Sean O'Boyle and Jerry Hicks. Mm. And that same year in Ballymoney Town Hall, I went along to see three men performing. They were on an Arts Council tour called Room de Rhyme. Davy Hammond, Michael Longley, and Seamus Heaney. And that was Room de Rhyme.
Heaney himself talks about dolmens around my childhood. I mean, you've named a lot of dolmens there.
Oh yeah, and that led to, funny enough, a tour, because the following year Michael Longley was the Director of Literature in the Arts Council at the time, and that tour was so successful with the three boys in 1968, they decided they were going to start something, and they started a You and Yours tour, which Michael Longley put the title to it, and he got a Donegal man living in Belfast called Brian O'Donnell, who was involved with Cultus and involved with traditional music very much in the Belfast scene, the Belfast branch of Cultus. Apparently, I was never in it, in Derlavolga Avenue, and he was very much involved in that. So he was brought in as advisor. So he recommended Maggie Barry, the traveller, travelling singer, Joe Burke, accordion player from Galway, and Sean O'Boyle and Jerry Hicks. Sean O'Boyle and Jerry Hicks were teaching in St Patrick's College in Armagh.
That's right.
And couldn't do the whole 2 weeks. And because they had adjudicated me, a young fella in Clonus, they suggested me, and I ended up getting half of the tour.
Wow.
And one of the tour manager was Brian O'Donnell, and it was a baptism of fire, I can tell you, going on that tour with that company. But anyway, I survived it. But Brian's brother-in-law was the night porter in the Wellington Park Hotel. So every night we'd drive away up, but we were in Balachi one night, and the Wolf Tone GAA, and back to bloody the thing. And his brother-in-law, he was the night porter, and he opened the bar, and we'd be there. The cock was crowing, you know. That was the way of it, and it was great crack. But that led to me. One of the gigs, I can't remember them all, but I remember Balachi was one of them. The next one I remember very well, for a great reason, was in another GA hall, but this time it was in Crossmaglen.
Right.
And Maggie Barry, of course, she, after we'd finished her performance, she leapt off and ran down the hall and threw her arms around John Campbell. That was my first meeting with John Campbell, 1969. And his two companions were John and Michael Ned Quinn, a father and son. Mm-hmm. And that was my meeting of those three gentlemen.
Like Stanley meeting Livingstone.
Yeah. And apparently the reason why she threw her arms around John was a young barman in Paddy the Post Trainer's pub in Craigenban.
My wife's granddad.
There you go. What do you hear this? And every Thursday, Maggie would come and she had her caravan. The bar top caravan was parked across the road from Trainer's pub, and she would come in, and John, the young barman, would come in, and she would borrow the money to get the bus into Newry to do a bit of busking in the market day, and then she'd come back and pay him back with, he used to say, hippens and copper and a wee bit of brass, but mostly copper, you know. But he was always very honest, paid back again, you know. But that was that. And then on Friday she would go the other direction into Castleblaney, mm-hmm. And she went in. This would be the early. See, he was born in 1933, and he left school at 14, and his mother got him to apply for a job, which was Paddy the Post.
He was hired out to Paddy the Post, yeah.
So he ended up in Craigengban.
And the troves of story, he made a career out of Paddy the Post.
That's where a lot of that storytelling came from. Was an apprenticeship, learning to be a barman and a storyteller. And she would have gone into Castleblaney to do busking, and she was busking outside, you see, on the street for money. She told me, she said, I used to bottle them, and I said, what's this bottling, Maggie? Well, you see, I used to bring people along with me to do, but then I decided to cut out the middleman. She says, I got a bit of wire. Eddie Richardson has sorted me out, she said. It was a bit of wire. He put it up on the machine heads. You know, you tune the banjo, she says. He put this up, and I put an old stocking in it. You see, and I'd just pop it under people's nose, and they'd throw the money into the stocking, she says. And I did my own bottling, she says. Cut out the middleman. Cut out the middleman. Oh, geez, I had some crack with her that tour. But anyway, she went into a fish and chip shop, and she said there was a big, brand new jukebox up on mounted on the wall. Just come in, you see, after the First World War, the early 50s, and she went over. What the hell is this? She got, you're redundant, Maggie. The proprietor of the fish and chip shop said, you're redundant. This is the new thing now. Somebody just went over and put a wee thrupply bit into it and pressed the button, and out came the music, and and she said, by God, I'll sicken them, she said. And she went out into the street in full blast. She said she didn't need a microphone.
No, such a projection that was.
Singing out in the streets all her life, you see. She didn't need a microphone. And she soon put the jukebox out of business. The Monaghan
she was Argus, the jukebox jury.
The Monaghan Argus newspaper was upstairs above the fish and chip shop, and the editor was getting his copy ready for the press. And he heard this commotion. He pulled the sash window up, and he saw Maggie strumming away with the banjo just underneath him. Grabbed a hold of a camera and took a photograph of her. You could nearly see her tonsils. A great photograph. Published it himself, but then sold it to the press in Dublin, the Sunday and the Irish press down in Dublin, and appeared big half picture ballad singer versus jukebox. And the next thing, who happens to be over from USA, but Alan Lomax.
Oh yes.
1951. His whole collection's up online now. You can see it, and you can see a lot of the interviews with Maggie Barry and all that's all online. And his archive. And he happened to be over with Seamus Innes, trying to convince him. You see, Hamish Anderson told me this, and if it hadn't have been for Lomax coming over from the Library of Congress in the after the Second World War, 51 he came over, convinced the BBC that better do something about this collecting, that this is going to be gone the way things are happening. We're doing it. You see, John Lomax, his father, and him were at it years from the 30s. Right. They were at it, So he said, "You better get at it, So he convinced him to do that survey. That's how Sean got the 9 counties. Sean O'Boyle got the 9 counties, but it was through Lomax.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Coming over in 51 and convincing the BBC to do it, and convinced the University of Edinburgh, the School of Scottish Studies, and he said he got his job over Lomax coming over from. His job as a collector, right. with
and carded machines to say of a sideboard around with them.
Like recording directly on the disc. There was a big cumbersome machine that they brought around doing all that, and remarkable what there was to be collected.
And who more? I see you have a few people lined up there to tell me about.
Yeah, well, the tour manager, as I say, was Brian O'Donnell, and the crack was mighty that tour. But a wee song that just came, I was coming over here today, just came to me. I haven't sung it for a while, but I think I remember there's verses I can't sing because they were so rude, But it was the tour song anyway. We kept on adding verses to it, and Maggie would add a verse, and we all add Do you love an apple? Do you love a pear? Do you love the lad with the dark curly hair? Ah, but still I love him, I can't forgive him, and I'll go with him wherever he goes. He came to our window, he whistled me out, 2 hands in his pocket, he was dressed like a lout. Ah, but still I love him, I can't forget him, and I'll go with him wherever he goes. He bought me a ribbon and his colour was blue. Before I could wear it he tore it in two. Still I love him, I can't forget him, I'll go with him wherever he goes. He took me to a cafe, he ordered 2 meals, and when we had finished he said, you pay the bill. Ah, but still I love him, I can't forget him, I'll go with him wherever he goes. Ah, my song it is ended, the story is out. If you want any more, mine's a bottle of stout. Ah, but still I love him, I can't forget him, I'll go with him wherever he goes. There's tea in the teapot, hard cheese on the shelf. If you want any more, you may sing it yourself. Ah, but still I love him, I can't forget him, I'll go with him wherever he goes. And the big bottles of stuff, she liked the big pint bottles, you know. She had to have a crate of those for the performances, you know.
And suitably warm, you didn't have cold beer in those days. That song has become beloved of people, and you're saying that a lot of it was developed on that tour.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are versions of it, of course. There's versions over in England.
Oh, they're filthy.
You know, but that brings me back that brings me back to that tour, you know. Jesus Christ, it was so, the crack was unbelievable, you know.
So you were then a professional musician at that stage?
No, oh no, this is 68. No, that was way. That's why I thought about bringing back How I Met John.
Oh,
and
all
yes, that's right back before I even met Patrick. I didn't meet Patrick until after Joe died.
Yeah, but you could see there were possibilities that a man could do this.
Oh, well, that wasn't the last thing in my mind at that stage, you know. Like,
what were there other careers that you set out on?
Oh no, well, I wouldn't call them careers. The jobs to pay for my travelling around the flowers and things. They weren't really jobs. But anyway, as I say, the first hearing of the Boys of Mullaban was actually from Davy Hammond in 1968, but I was again to hear from John Campbell in 1969. We had a session in the Rangers Hall in Crossmaglen, and he had a whole story. I can't remember. I wish I'd had a tape recorder. He had a whole story regarding who the Boys of Mullaban were. From his grandfather Peter was from Craigan. No, he was from. He wasn't Craigan, but near Silverbridge. Cargan. He was Cargan. He's from Cargan, near Silverbridge, and he had a whole story. He was born about I think he said around 1870 or so. So he had a whole story of who the boys were and everything, you know. Mm-hmm. But then that was hearing John sing unaccompanied, of course. Davey was singing it with a accompaniment.
With the old nylon string guitar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew it was a good song. And on a Monday morning early, as my wandering steps did lead me, down by yon farmer's station, through meadows and green lawn, I heard great lamentation, and the small birds they were warbling, saying we'll have no more engagements with the boys of Mullaban. Squire Jackson, he's unequalled for honour and for reason. He never turned traitor nor betrayed the rights of man. But now we are in danger from a vile deceiving stranger, who has ordered transportation for the boys of Mullaban. Now, when I heard that song,
It's got the blood up in both of us now.
when I heard that song, I said to myself, Boys of Mullaban, it must be the only song, or one of the very few songs in Ireland that compliments a landlord, you know.
Yeah.
But then, what the hell is this Rights of Man about? I asked Sean Boyle, didn't know. Asked him, and he's a educated scholar, didn't know a damn about it. I started making a bit of inquiries into it, and I got the whole. I think I'd nearly do a PhD on the Rights of Man.
There's the book, wasn't it? Yeah.
Back in 1792, Samuel Nielsen, the editor of the Northern Star, the newspaper of the Society of United Irishmen, published the Rights of Man. It was a bestseller in Belfast and all over. And when Wolfe Tone came up to Belfast, he said he'd come to the Athens of the North with all this enlightenment. And he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't enlightenment. The grandfather of the Enlightenment, Francis Hutcheson, was born in Saintfield, and he taught Adams and Smith over in Glasgow, and they're called the fathers of the Enlightenment. But the Enlightenment was over here before they go on to Scotland, you know.
That was the Presbyterian.
Before they went Calvinist. There always were two branches, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Non-subscription, and that's nothing, because John Campbell said to me after he came to my father's funeral, he says, down in Glenarm, he says, non-subscribing, he says, I'm going to join you boys. Why? He says, that clergyman of ours is us nearly robbed. He says, I says, it's nothing to do with that. He says, we don't subscribe to, we're like you. I says, we don't subscribe to Westminster Confession of Faith. Yeah. But anyway, that was another story. But I'm going to show you a photograph here. And it's a very small photograph. There's a man with a cow horn there. That's the MoneyGram ribbon man's horn that he's blowing there, 1937. I met him about 30. I met him about 30 years ago. He was a very old man when I met him. He's a fairly young man there in his 30s. I met him when he was an old man. This man's John McGrath. I was living at the time in Ballymaconley, on the banks just near the River Bann, just across the Bann, which was the demarcation in County Derry, was this man living in MoneyGram. He gave one song to Sam Henry, and found out that Sam Henry's real job was as an excise man. He worked for the government, so he said he didn't give him any more songs. And he gave me a whole clatter of songs. Now, that brings me to another Rights of Man, because a County Armagh man from in and around the Portadown district went on the run because he was out in 1798 and ended up in Drogheda, died in Drogheda, and he's buried in the old Cord cemetery in Drogheda. He was a linen weaver and poet. So John McGrath, that gives one song to Sam Henry, give me this version of the Rights of Man. I'll speak in candour of a night in slumber. My mind did wander near to Athlone, to the centre station of our Irish nation, where a congregation unto me was shown. Beyond my counting upon a mountain, close to a fountain and clearly ran. The earth did tremble, I'll not dissemble, as they assemble for the rights of man. Through the azure sky then I did espy a man to fly, aye, and to descend. Straightway came down upon the ground, where Erin round had her bosom friends. A dazzling sight that was more bright than the stars by night or the midday sun. Believe in Grania, high and proud Britannia, ne'er shall rob you of the rights of man. And there's another 40 verses.
Aren't there rhymes fabulous in that.
Well, I mean, that's the
So
internal.
clever.
Well, it's in the boys of Mullaban have that sort of internal assonance. It's from the transition of Irish into English, really. Is
But they're never predictable. The first time you hear them, you're waiting to hear what's going to rhyme. They're never predictable. That's the great thing. It's not. It's not love and dove. You know?
No. But it's very much of that hedge school. Like the songs.
Such articulate writers.
I have a whole. You can really pin them on. You can really pinpoint where the hedge school was, and many of them too. So he was definitely a hedge school man anyway. And that was about John Shields. The last verse mentions his name. And as I say, he ended up in Drogheda. But you see, whenever John was talking about, he didn't know what the rights of man was either, but an awful lot of people didn't know and weren't aware there was an Englishman that printed that, and well, he was from Norfolk originally, but then he published it in London in 1792, and influenced, like the number of people that influenced, like it's incredible. It crossed the Atlantic and influenced the whole thing over there with Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Wolfe Tone and Henry Joy McCracken and all those people. Even Napoleon Bonaparte he said he kept a copy of it under, probably in French of course, but a copy of Paine. He said a statue of gold should be erected in every city of Europe to commemorate this great man Thomas Paine. And then the Boyle Paine heard that he put a crown on his head in Notre Dame Cathedral in 1804 and said he was a bigger scoundrel and braggart and tyrant than the one that they'd replaced, you know, which he was.
Of course, yeah. That's the nature of
but here's another thing, talking about the rights of man and Samuel Nielsen. I was doing a gig before the pandemic, was over in Boston College, and this lady came up to me afterwards and said, Mr. Graham, I keep asking people this question, but nobody, anybody from Ireland never heard tell of him. My great 6 times grandfather was a man called Samuel Nielsen. And I said, Samuel Nielsen, he says, my hero. And he said, the editor of the Northern Star. Yeah. Well, she says, you're the first person from Ireland that actually ever met. She sent me a photograph of his grave over in the States. He was the Monaghan militia under Leslie, who was in charge of them, brought them in and broke up his printing press, and he was put into prison in Kilmainham. And they sent him over to the Alcatraz of Scotland for the Jacobites, the big what do you call it? Fort George.
Oh yes.
It's away over in the peninsula in Inverness.
Yeah.
Nobody ever broke out of it, you know. Right. So he was in there for about 1797 to 3. About 5 years there, and then he got away and emigrated to America, you know. But she was 6 times great, Rebecca Jackson.
Right, isn't it amazing how things come around like that? You know?
That's been happening all my life, you know. It's like songs.
Yeah.
You know,
there's something in the zeitgeist.
Fellow used to say, you're like a terrier dog, you get the whiff of a bloody song or a singing your way after them, you know.
Yeah.
Remember one time, I was just when I mentioned Eddie Butcher there, the abattoir of songs, I got this contact, and the address fascinated me, you know. It was number 6, the 12 Apostles. Actually, that's a great address. So there were estate houses all attached to one another, you know. You couldn't swing a bloody cat on them. I don't know how the hell you know, they were very cramped, but geez, you couldn't, I don't know what sort of bed they had, but Jesus, everything was very cramped, and there was 12 of them, a row of houses, but they were attached to the downhill castle, you see, and his name was Jimmy Spallin. It was somebody, I forget who gave me the name anyway. I headed up anyway, the thing, and he could only remember bits and pieces, and he said, God, you know, you've come to the wrong man. He says, I play the whistle. He played an old, it wasn't a Clark's whistle, it was one that he bought from one of the Dohertys that made them out of tin, you know. The Dohertys used to go around selling tin whistles that they made themselves. This is an old man in the 60s, so this would be probably way back before the Second World War, between the wars probably. And he played an old tin whistle, a real tin whistle, you know. It wasn't one of your generation ones with a plastic thing. And he said, God, if you're looking for singing, he says, there's 3 men, he says, up the road there, not too far away. He said, now you go up through there's a level crossing here in Castle Rock. The next one you come to the Umbra cross, there's a level crossing. Just in there's a cottage in there, and that's the eldest brother, that's Robert Butcher. You call in there, there's 3 of them. And the girls do a bit of singing too with the 3 men. You go to Credit Deacon's pub there, you'll hear some singing. Those 3 boys particularly, he says. And then you go down about a mile from there, you pass the Ballerina railway station, and you'll come to a crossroads. That's the Achill Cross. You turn right, and there's 6 wee labourers' cottages there. They're attached together, 2s and 2s. I think the middle one's that's Eddie's house in there. And then if you go another about a mile to Drummond Valley, you'll come to, there's a set of 3 on the right hand side. You couldn't miss them, he said, because I think they're the last of they're thatched and bent, or marram grass, he says. They're still thatched. He said they must be the last of the thatched houses. And the middle one, I think it is, that's John, but he's the youngest of them. Those 3 boys will give you more bloody singing you'll never hear in your life. And he wasn't telling any lies. He wasn't telling any lies.
But it's the serendipity of things, isn't it? Just the chance to encounter like that.
Yeah. Well, that's another of those serendipities that keep on happening. But talking about South Armagh, here's another family connection. Jemmy Hope, 1798 fame, came up to South Armagh. He wanted to persuade the boys in Mullaban and the people up here to join the Society of United Irishmen, not the Defenders,
right?
Because they were all defenders in South Armagh at that time. He wanted them to join the
splitters.
He wanted to do what Tone wanted. Protestant, Catholic, and Dissenter. He says, do away with all these denominations and segregations. So he came to the Market Stone in around 1797. Well, I was singing at the grave of the first one to be executed was William Orr was stamped that on the pikes. Remember Orr was stamped on the pikes,
really?
But he was hung in Carrickfergus in 1797. I was singing at his grave, the bicentennial in 1997, and the church it's a non-subscriber. The church, the churchyard, but the church was where they kept the guns for the Battle of Antrim, and the field pieces and all, for the Battle of Antrim were kept in the crib of that wee church in Templepatrick.
For Antrim Town.
Yeah, that's where they were. From in and around that area was where Jemmy Hope was from. But fast forward, and one of my father's friends, well, there was two of them. They were a duet. They played around all the dances and concerts back in the. Well, he died in the 50s. I met him just the once at an Antrim and Derry gathering, probably about the mid 50s. I think he died 59 or so. But anyway. But it was the first time I clapped my eyes on uilleann pipes. Back in the 50s, they were like hen's teeth. There was 2 people making pipes. There was Rolston, Dublin, and McFadden in Belfast. McFadden learnt of Richard O'Mealy, who died in 49, I think. I never met him, but he was a great pipe maker. And actually, Willie Hope played a set of his pipes, uilleann pipes. But back at that time, you see, there was, really, you can really count them in 2 hands because they were so rare. They were definitely a rare breed, So Willie Hope told my father he was the direct descendant of Jemmy Hope of 1798, and he was from the right area. He was from that part of the world where Jemmy was from, So I believe, I don't think he was a liar. And so then we'll move you another few years. I had still moved to South Armagh. But this was a counter which was organised by Sean O'Driscoll.
I remember him well as a teacher. And
there you go.
A piano player.
Yep. Sean O'Driscoll with Paddy Rafferty and Jimmy Burns organised a singing seminar in the Ardmore Hotel, which is now the Barracks.
I remember, actually I lived beside it, and I remember one thing, those three boys didn't like guitars.
Well, there's no guitars at this particular gathering. I think it was 1974 or 75. It was definitely in around that mid-70s anyway, because Joe Holmes was alive and he died in 78. I'm nearly sure it was in around the mid-70s anyway. And there was a great gathering of singers there that got together. And Joe Holmes was there, Eddie Butcher wasn't, but Geordie Hanna, Sir Anne O'Neill, who was Paddy Tunney? I think Paddy was there, Paddy Tunney. Tommy Sands was over with his dad, Mick the Chief Sands. The Chief was over there.
Chief well.
And oh God, there was such a gathering of singers. But Sean gave a great talk at that. He had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he was playing a lot of the recordings from those 50s BBC musical traditions survey that he was involved in the 9 counties. And he was playing a lot of recordings from that, you know, and giving some of the background. And so it's very interesting anyway. But there was somebody in the audience, I just can't remember who it was. It was a female anyway. And I think she was English or something, but I don't think I saw her before or saw her since, so I can't put a name on her. But she said, Mr. O'Boyle, that's very interesting. Can you tell me what makes a good traditional singer? What is it? How do you define it? And he thought for a minute. I have it. Now, just give me a minute. Just give me a wee minute. And there was a counter on his
tape.
It was a big, probably 6-inch tape, maybe bigger. I think it was actually a bigger tape, maybe 9-inch. Tape he had, reel to reel, you see, and he had a counter on, and he said, just wanted to need a notebook, and he went through it. All right, 1952. See, it's only 2 years. I think it's 52 and 53. I think they did those recordings. That's what's remarkable. It was only during the summer months too that they got so much.
Of course, couldn't be the teacher.
Yeah. All you had to go back exactly. So he stopped. He said, "Now, Sir Anne O'Neill." Yes, Sean. It was actually Sean O'Boyle and Jerry Hicks that introduced me to Sir Anne O'Neill. Right. and Geordie wasn't there that day, All Ireland Flag in 68 when they were adjudicating me, you know. But he actually introduced me, and I ended up at one of their big nights, one of Sir Anne's big nights in 68. That was the beginning of another friendship. But anyway, Sir Anne, I'm going to ask you to do some. I'm going to ask you to sing one verse of The Factory Girl. Oh, just the one verse? Well, I just want to demonstrate something here. And Sir Anne got up and she sang The Factory Girl.
Yeah.
Now, just by coincidence, there's a man here called Geordie Hanna. And although his name is Hanna, he's a brother of the previous singer. Sir Anne Hanna. And she's now O'Neill. Will you sing the next verse, Geordie? Just the one verse, Sean. Just the one verse, Geordie. Geordie got up and he sang the Factory Girl, the next verse. Lovely. Now, just give me a second now. And he pushed down the button. Out came a singer. Stopped. Now, I recorded that in 1952. That was George Hanna, an uncle of that George Hanna you're after hearing. Now, what do you think of that? 3 out of the same family. Individuality. That's what makes a good singer.
Wow.
Wasn't that something?
So I don't know if the boys know that story. The present generation, I must have it, pass it on now. Individuality.
Individuality. That was Sean. I thought it was great. I thought it was a good way of putting it all.
Yeah. Well, tell me, individuality now. It's often. Tell me about the way that people dress the songs and add their ornamentation and so on. Does that provide some individuality, or is it just?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's all down to personal taste and you know all the things that you've heard and learnt and forgotten and half remembered. It's all part and parcel of it, you know. But it's not just doing a part on everything you hear, you know. Like
Sure.
trying to put your own stamp in your own voice. Like, but I mean, it's very much an individual thing. Like, I can't see. You know, I would like to be. I only adjudicated once at the All Ireland Fla in '76, I think it was, and nearly got lynched. The Wexford boys were going to lynch me.
Yeah.
And I said I'd never do it again. No, it's. I don't think you can really adjudicate singing, really.
Yeah, do you immerse yourself in the song, or can you make a grocery list while you're singing?
No, no. I mean, it's like breathing with me. I just can't imagine not singing. You know, it's just part and parcel of what I am. It's just shivering.
And do you walk through the songs in your head as you're singing them? Do you live? There's a line in Hamlet where Hamlet finds Claudius praying, and he thinks, now I can kill the boy and get rid of him. And then he says, no, he's praying, so he'll go to heaven and he'll get away with what he's done to my family. And then as Hamlet goes away, Claudius stands up and says, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go.
Yeah.
Which is advice that I always give the young actors, that you have to think your way into the part.
But
do you get emotionally attached, is maybe what I'm saying?
Yeah, I suppose Father gave me some great advice over the years. You know, and he used to say, always live the song, tell the story. Like if it's a love song, try and feel that there's an element of love within yourself, and you know, always there has to be a certain amount of it. You have to think out what you're singing, and if it's a comic song, you treat it differently, and talking about comic
and the timing's totally different, because you can never predict a laugh, and it'll kill it if you do sort of wait for a laugh.
Yeah.
But you have to make allowances for an audience reaction in comedy you don't get in the others.
Yeah, that's it. Well, just when I met Sarah Macomb, of course, I was aware of her singing before I was aware of the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Macomb from way back in the early 50s. Unfortunately, she only sang the two verses every Sunday, and I had to go to Shauna Boyle, give me the rest of the song, you know. But I think, you know, that goes right back to when I was a lump of a lad, you know. As I rode out on a May morning right early, I met me love upon the way, oh Lord, but she was early. And she sang lil-ta-doodle, lil-ta-doodle, lil-ta-doodle-day, shi-hi-da-lum-ba-dee, and shi-hi-da-lum-ba-dee, and shi-lan-day. Her shoes were black and her stockings white, and her buckles shone like silver. She had a dark and a roving eye, and her earrings tipped her shoulder. And she sang lil-ta-doodle, lil-ta-doodle, lil-ta-doodle-day, shi-hi-da-lum-ba-dee, and shi-hi-da-lum-ba-dee, and shi-lan-day. And that's all I had of the song until the bell Sean was able to give me the rest of it.
Well, speaking of lilting, as in the course there, you're a lilter yourself, aren't you?
Well, I do a bit of it.
I know people are still singing the songs, but I don't know any new lilters. Have you come across?
I think there's a competition at the Flats.
Really?
I think there is. I think there are a few coming up. But you've got that. Stephanie, of course, is on board with all. There's a man just died there recently. He's called Rod Stradling over in Stroud in Gloucestershire. I've been over a few times with him, but he just died there recently. But he did a wonderful job there for the Macomb family and bringing out not just the recordings that Sean made, but all the recordings, family ones and everything. All, you know, and hopefully you've got that.
We have
musical traditions.
We have all the discs archived. We've got them all digitized and with their permissions, and it's a very proud place in our collection.
Yeah. But the stuff that Rod done and includes a lot of stuff, family stuff, very unusual. That Lomax and even what do you call her? Not Peggy. What do you call Jean?
Yes.
Jean. What do you call Ritchie? Jean Ritchie was over in 52. She came over in 52. Was up with the Macombs and all over. Yeah.
It's good to have people who are so forensic and dedicated to a job like that, and how they
Oh, yeah,
let
no,
let nothing go, or say
yeah.
that's not important.
No, he did a great job over the years. That Rod Stradling, a great man, and I'm sure Stephanie would if she hasn't already given that. But and his Rod's widow, Danny, would, I'm sure, be able. If she, maybe she only got one copy of it, I don't know. But it's a huge undertaking. You know, it's you know, it's much bigger than the BBC thing. And then, of course, part of that 50s stuff with like Sean would brought him into Forkhill, the famous Frank Wings Campbell, no relation of John Campbell's, as John said. And I said, what's this Wings about? I said, was he in the RAF? Oh, Jesus, no. He said, no, he took flights of fancy, he says. Great storyteller. He told me some of the stories that Frank told, you know. I wound I was on yonder hill, it's there myself I would cry my fill, and every tear would turn a mill. It's go Jay to my born slan. Shul, shul, shul arun, shul go summer agus shul go kyun, shul go doris agus haili long. It's go Jay to my horn slan. The way John told it, he said, you'd have thought that you see, that was back in the Battle of Boyne and the Flight of the Earls and all, and John said, you thought out the way Frank would tell you about it, that he was actually there at the Battle of Boyne.
Yeah, there's a great Oriel connection in that song, and it appears on the big collection that the O'Boyle sons put together on Oriel, and the wonderful Mary Wall sings that on the album.
Mary, God, there's another name.
Absolutely.
She died very young. She must have been only in her 30s. What age she was?
Only in her 30s, and she got one of those lousy ones, Jesus. You know. And I remember there was a letter from her read out at her funeral, and she talked about this fucking pestilence, and you know, wonderful.
God love her, yeah. God, just a minute, I forgot about Mary. You know. Well, we landed. I'm bringing you up. We've landed in the parochial house. It must be 1983. The O'Hanlons were in the PP, and we had the thing. You can really see daylight through the bloody roof, out of the roofs and all that. But anyway, had to get them in. The first thing we did was try to sort out the kitchen. So Patrick and Owen was only a baby at the time. McDara hadn't been born, so they were down in Dundalk staying with Patrick's mother, and I was living in the house, camping in the house, you should say. And had the builders in trying to get the kitchen, trying to get a bit of order into it, and sort the central heating out and get things livable. Not a major job, because it would do about 6 phases. You know, it kept on getting extensions to the mortgage to do extra work. You know, big work had to be done, because it hadn't been badly neglected. It had been very little work done by the parish priest and the curate. But anyway, I'm up the ladder, putting a bit of putty in a window or something, doing something anyway up a ladder, and this boy comes up the drive wheeling a high Nelly bicycle. There's something on the handlebar. What the hell is this? So I came down the ladder, and he welcomed me to the parish. And he introduced himself as being Mickey McGuigan, local historian, and he said, "I have a wee present for you." He says, and he handed me this big lump of, it was probably slate or something, you know, but he had done a bit of sign writing in it, you know, and old Gaelic script, you know. So I tried to make it out. I saw something Thomas Lappin, you know. And anyway, Patrick came back. She was teaching at the time the Gael school in Dundalk, and she came back from school. And I said, "I've got a housewarming present here." "What is it?" She said. I said to her, "Name it, Jesus." She said, "It's a tombstone here. On this spot in 1798, Thomas Lappin, the blacksmith, was executed. Where are we going to put that? Put it up in the nursery, maybe. Or we put it up out in the back of the garden." I don't know if it's maybe still there for all I know. But that was the housewarming from Mickey McGuigan.
Was there a graveyard around the
No.
church? No.
No.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, that's fairly grim greeting, isn't it? Yeah. But we don't have that anymore. We don't have characters.
No,
do we?
well, actually, he was a character, all right. He had a character, Mickey. Well, if you refer to Patrick's book, you'll see there's a Patrick McGahan collection of music. There's no words and titles, and he was from Dungooley, just on the Louth side of the Armagh border, and he had a manuscript that she got the hold of out of Maynooth, the Laverty collection, 1817. It was dated, this small book of tunes, and there's some song titles, mostly tunes, and one of the titles, which I was actually familiar with because it's in here,
Bible.
it's in the Bible, and it's Mollyban a Store. Now, Mollyban a Store was composed by George Ogle, a Wexford man, back in the 18th century. I'll put a wee marker in here. First published in Edinburgh. You see, we forget there's a very high literacy, particularly music literacy in Scotland. And whenever Donal O'Sullivan was putting together the music of Carolan, a lot of his manuscripts turned up in Scotland.
Right.
And the same applies to a lot of songbooks too. You'll find an awful lot of Irish songs over in Scotland. And of course, whenever Bunting was collecting from the Harpers back in 1792 in Belfast, one of the ones that seemed to impress him most was Donal O'Hanlon, or Dennis Hempsey. And Dennis Hempsey played for Charles Edward Stuart in the Holyrood Palace in 1746, before the Battle of Culloden. He played for him actually in the thing. So he was even over in Edinburgh, you know, and all these musicians were moving around.
Yeah.
You know, Rory Donal O'Hanlon was over earlier, along with Graham, when Graham was fighting against the Campbells. The Campbells were on the what do you call that? Jesus. But anyway, funny enough, the Campbells were on his side, and the Grahams and the O'Cahans and the McDonald's, Alistair Kittog McDonald, they were unbeatable for I don't know many years. But finally the Campbell did overcome. But all those, the Rory Donal O'Hanlon was over at that time.
You see, we haven't done enough really on the whole pan-Celtic nature of things.
That whole connection of the ancient kingdom of Dalriada.
That was just the word I was searching for. Yeah.
Because there's Donad, where King Conall, he resided back in the 6th century, and gave Iona to Colmcille, who was actually a far out relative of his. But he was actually a high king of Dalriada, which took in a big slump of Argyllshire. Sure.
Absolutely.
Right from the cuts of Coleraine right down to Curran and Larne. It was a whole kingdom. You know?
Yeah. I think we're better to think of the British Isles as a whole Celtic phenomenon that then just had this sort of input down in the southeast from elsewhere. You know, but basically it is a Celtic archipelago.
Oh yeah, exactly. But what do you hear this? He got it from George Ogle, but he collected it from David Simpson, from Ballydevitt. That'd be in Achadui up Derry. He collected it from in 1788 in Edinburgh. Before it ever appeared over here, it was composed by the Wexford man George Ogle.
It was the Mollyban song.
Yeah. It appeared over in Edinburgh. And who sees it over in Edinburgh but the Bowl Robbie Burns?
Oh.
And he adds, I do not remember, this is Robert Burns, I do not remember any single line in poetry that has more true pathos than how can she break the honest heart that wears her to its core. That's in this. I'll see if I can remember that line. So again, this turns up in the McGahan as a title. No words, just Molly Bannister. It's one of the titles. As down by Banna's banks I stren one evening in May, the small birds in brightest notes made vocal every spray. They sang their little notes of love, they sang them o'er and o'er. O Gramacree, Macaulay Ong, she's Molly Bannister. O hand I all the flocks that graze on yonder yellow hill, or loan for me the numerous herns that yon green pastures fill. With her I love I would gladly share my kine and fleecy store. O Gramacree, Macaulay Ong, she's Molly Bannister. I will lay me down upon the bank, bewailing my sad fate, than doom me thus a slave to love, or cruel Molly's hate. How can she break the honest heart that wears her to the core? O Gramacree, Macaulay Ong, she's Molly Bannister.
Ah, there's great heartbreak in there, isn't there?
Can't beat the unrequited love.
Oh, no.
So that's Patrick McGann, but there's a few other ones. Like, here's another. You talk about mobility and how these songs travelled around. I took Joe Holmes. I met Joe at an Antrim Fiddler's Day. I was singing one of my grandmother's songs, 1963. It was the same year that we hitchhiked down to the All Ireland Flag. That would have been August, so this would be probably about October, November of that same year. I was singing at the Antrim Fiddlers in Dunminnon outside Ballymena, and one of the fiddlers came up and asked me for the words of the song I sang, and I got his address and landed right in Killyrammer between Ballymoney and Arramoy, and that began another great friendship until Joe died in 1978. So 15 years of going all over the Ireland and Flas and gatherings and all sorts of mischief we're up to, and enjoying ourselves. But one of there's a huge story there as well, but that's another story. That's outside of Oriel. But anyway, one of the tunes in the Patrick McGahan collection, he mentions Merrily Kiss the Quaker, and that turns up all over the place, including Scotland. And I took Joe Holmes down to meet. We did do the grand. It was one of our many grand tours. Sometimes we headed the other direction, but this particular one we headed south, Wexford, and headed on round Cork, and then to Slieve Lucra, Dennis Murphy,
right.
And the pair of boys started fiddling together. You know, we've got songs going as well. But I was interested to see how the two boys, all those miles apart, maybe 300 miles or more, I don't know what, between that part of near Killarney and North Antrim.
Yes.
But God, I was surprised how many tunes I had in common.
The Venn diagrams overlapping again.
Yeah, so I says, Joe, what's that tune you're after? Well, ask Dennis. Well, what do you call that? I call that Particle Keeps Farewell to Whiskey. Oh, well, I call it Neil Gow's Farewell to Whiskey.
Well, there's a common denominator there.
And it was published by Neil Gow back in the 18th century. Right. And it was one of the people that Burns met on his great Highland tour back before 1788 or something. He did a Highland tour, and he called with the Duke of Atholl, and Neil Gow was the fiddler to the Duke of Atholl up in Perthshire.
Atholl Highlanders, there's a
yeah. So that's Joe had the right title. So they were playing the same. And there was others. Dennis said the Merrily Kiss the Quakers, and that's mentioned. And he also mentioned Neil Gow in McGahan.
Yeah.
So that's that. But Joe was able to give Dennis Murphy an extra part to the tune, and also had words as well. So. The Quaker's wife, she baked the scone, and Johnny Dance Willing was on. Merrily danced the Quaker's wife, and merrily danced the Quaker. Ride-a-diddle-dee-diddle-dum-dum-dee-die, rattle-dee-dum-da-diddle-dum-dee-die-do. Ride-a-diddle-dum-diddle-dee-dum-dee-diddle-dee-die-do. Ride-a-diddle-dum-diddle-dee-dum-dee-die-do. Ride-a-diddle-dee-diddle-dum-die, rattle-dum-diddle-dee-diddle-dum-diddle-dee-dum-dee-die-do. Ride-a-diddle-dee-diddle-dum-die, rattle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dee-dum-dee-diddle-dee-die-do. Ride-a-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-diddle-dum-dee-didd dum dum de diddle dum de dido, riddle dum diddle dum de haddle dum de dido. That was a part that Dennis didn't have.
Yeah.
And
I don't recognise the last bit of the
yeah, my mother were up in Joe's cottage one time, and Joe's sister was there, Nancy, and she'd be in around my mother's age, you know. I think she's a wee bit older. Joe was born in 1906. Nancy was probably within around my mother's age, but the two of them got up and they started dancing. The Quaker, there's lovely steps to it, you know.
Right.
I had no, we had a bloody move. Some of those old dances, you know.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, it strikes me then that you wouldn't normally associate Quakers with merriment, would you?
No, good people.
Yeah.
Good people.
Good people, the best of them all.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
They go to prison rather than go to war.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, apart from Russell and people like that, you know, great people. And great people during the famine.
Of course.
Aye, and of course Luke Donlan mentions mostly dance tunes, but he did a lot of great recordings of Irish language stuff, you know,
right.
Donal O'Hanlon and all those, Ercole Cregan and all those were all recorded by Luke Donlan. He imported a Edison cylinder recorder, like he's one of the first to do that back in the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah.
That was the first job that Seamus Ennis got down, and the Folklore Commission was transcribing from those cylinder recordings. You know?
Yeah.
But titles, there are some song titles there in English. You've got Lovely Molly, and I heard an Oriole version of that from a man called Peter McCardle. He used to be the resident musician in Mark McLaughlin's
Absolutely.
pub. Yeah. And he had a version of it, and I had a version from Joe Holmes.
I didn't remember singing now. Peter's was a singer.
Oh yeah, he had some songs. He's mostly a fiddler, but he had some songs, and this was one that he did have. Lovely Molly.
Yeah.
Oh, where's it go now? Oh, courting is a pleasure between my love and I. And it's down by yonder valley I will meet her by and by. It's down by yonder valley she is my heart's delight. And this with you, lovely Molly, I could spend till broad daylight. Oh, never court a wee girl with a dark and a roving eye. Just kiss her and embrace her, don't tell her the reason why. Just kiss her and embrace her, don't tell her the reason why. For a faint-hearted soldier never gained a battlefield. And you cause her
For a
to
real
yield like
lot of money then,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that turns up in Oriel with Peter, who was a resident musician in Mark McLaughlin's pub. And
with Ballymoney as the place, was it named Ballymoney?
no, he didn't. You see, his was actually a rewrite of the song. That's a very old song.
It is.
It crossed the Atlantic because I was doing a round robin with Gene Ritchie at a festival over in Massachusetts, Penguin Festival up near Plymouth, and we were doing a round robin, sort of trying to find comparisons of songs, and there were a number of songs that we had in common, different versions, of course. And she had a version of that. She called it "Loving Hannah," which Mary Black recorded. Came from Gene Ritchie, and she had learned it in a family over in Kentucky, which went across probably in the 18th century, with the early migrations. You know, she loving Mary Black recorded that. Brez of Balquhitters also looked on and collected a version of that, and I got a version from Tilly McKernan. She had a pub up in Rashargan, one of the really old-fashioned, the Brez of Balquhitter, and that appears in Donal and the Wax Cylinders, you know. That's the Brez of that's the song that actually Frank McPeak made famous, the Wild Mountain Thyme.
Oh yes, of course.
But it's the original of it, you know.
So he didn't actually write it as rumour had it, but he certainly changed it.
He changed it, yeah. But he lost the Mark III. Francis Mark III lost the case with.
There was a case. That's right.
Yeah, with Rod Stewart recorded it.
Yes.
But he lost the case.
Yeah.
I will build my love a bower near yon clear crystal fountain, and I'll cover it all o'er with the flowers o' the mountain. I will roam through the wilds and the deep glen so dreary, and return away the spoils to the arms o' my dearie. Now the cowl wintry winds sprightly swirl round our dwelling, and the roar of the wind and the night breeze is swelling. Oh my dear, we will sing as the storm rattles o'er us, with sheets of falling rain and the lightning in chorus. Oh, the summer's in prime, and the flowers are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme o'er the moorlands perfuming. To our dear native scenes let us journey together, where glad innocence reigns mongst the Brez o' Balquhinter.
It strikes me then that you're like a scientist who's able to take all these bits of DNA and trace them back to the common ancestor, ancestry.com, you know.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
But you've got I'm glad that you've got the Mary Ann Carlin, so that's great. There's definitely a great singer, great character. We met her in the mid-70s. O'Rahilly. O'Rahilly GAA in Drogheda, 1975. Sean Cochran and Jim McCardle and Sean's wife. What do you call it? Helen Brennan, and there was a committee of them, of course, but Sean was. But that was a great gathering. Jesus Christ, the singers, but the local singers. But then there was Shano singers. You'd Josie Shan-Jack, the McDonalds, who had married, very young, married Nick O'Neill.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
And what do you call the one from Ralph Carney, who was living in Leeds for years? Darragh O'Kane, Nicholas Tobin, Paddy Tunney, oh Jesus, you name it. There was such a gathering of. It was like a who's who in traditional singers. You know, those gatherings. That's where I first heard Mary Ann Carlin and our brother Pat Usher.
Yeah. And again, that line, like Dolmans around my childhood, the old people, aren't they? The such significance of these people who were just rooted into the whole thing.
Yeah, great.
But you absorbed it all, sponge like yourself. I mean,
sponge.
It's a particular type of well, not like Harold Wilson calling you a sponger, you know. But there's a particular type of person who's able to just absorb all that and retain it. And
I just couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Like I was so lucky that I just came in. It really was the tail end, really, when you think of it, of that generation. Like a lot of the singers that I was meeting were born in the latter end of my grandma was 1876. All that generation, and then Eddie was born in 1900. Like all Sarah Macon in 1900. All those people, or all that generation that came up, were all.
And we're so lucky to have had them in that preservation.
Oh, Jesus. But definitely Lomax telling the BBC to get out there and record.
He cranked the handle.
Yeah, he did. He certainly did. He deserves credit for that. Yeah, Sean O'Boyle was a great mentor and encourager of mine over the years, you know.
I met him many a time because I was good mates with his son Manus. I met him. I had that privilege a few times. But, I was a bit of a hippie playing the guitar at the time, and he would patiently listen to you. And he was great.
He wouldn't. As long as you were singing, he would give a damn.
That's right. Yeah.
But he was up to giving a talk, and just after the university opened in Coleraine, and I was asked along. I'd met him before. I'd met him in '68 now, but I think he'd said it was Liam O'Doherty was running it, and Liam said that Sean asked me to ask you over to this. So I went along. It was a great recital. He had the recordings, and it was great. And said, anyway, get a drink and a bit of a sing-song. Well, I says, there's a boy the same name as yourself, O'Boyle, Jimmy O'Boyle's pub in Abbey Street. We could go down there, maybe get the back room and get a wee bit of a session going. The best. He said, so we headed off to Jimmy O'Boyle's. I know Jimmy was very eccentric. Mad as a bloody hatter, so he was, but he was the best of it. He was just mad, totally. And Sean, of course, with the same name, he thought he was great, you know. Mm-hmm. They got the back room going anyway, and got a great session going. And everybody was doing their bits. I forget who all was there now. Can't remember. Geez, so long ago. Mm-hmm. Liam O'Doherty. I can't remember. Jesus Christ, that was that'd been early 70s, probably 1870 or something. Very early 70s. Anyway. The second was going good, and Jimmy Boyle came in. He says, "There's a man out here knows you." Well, who is it? Spud Murphy. Oh, Jesus, is he in there? He says, "I'll tell you what." He says, "Well, what did he say?" He says your dog is singing the arse off you. Yeah. Spud used to be he was a fisherman, but a retired fisherman. But him and my dad used to have a session, and when they got their pension, and the sing song, you see, and the Harbour Bar in Portrush. We were living in Portrush at this stage, and the pair of them would be having their sing song, you see, in the background. So he says, "Your dog is singing there."
Well, I think there's a compliment in there, really, a backward sort of a compliment. You know?
Every time I saw Sean after, I heard your dog sing there, so yeah.
I remember at his wake too, it was a story much told about Cardinal O'Fee coming down on his old black bone shaker bicycle.
High Nelly.
Yeah.
Jesus, it was a big night. It was a big night, and whenever, before we became Cardinal, there was a big night over in Armagh with the Cardinal. He said his two favourite songs was the Old Orange Flute and Ur Kilcragan. They were his two favourite songs. Well, he sang the Old Orange Flute the whole way through.
I know.
The whole way through.
He had 2 feet firmly planted in
each camp.
Safe territory, you know.
Oh, Jesus, we had some crack over the years.
Well, Len, it's I think we have drained you dry.
Oh, no, you haven't dreamed me. I'm frightened if I'd gone down too many tangents there, you'd be here to 4 a.m.
No, well, I mean, I can think we can start working the PhD of you, but that's certainly the insights that we've gleaned, and the tunes we've heard, and putting it all on record for new people to come along.
There you go. As I say, it's kept me going a lifetime anyway, and I'm still working at it. I'm still trying to put a shape on it.
Well, that will be a very proud part of our Oriel archive, and let's spread the word
You're welcome.
worldwide about you. And thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome.